My wife canceled my return ticket in front of her friends. Not quietly, not by mistake. She showed me the screen, smiled, and said it was to teach me obedience. Her friends laughed. One of them said I'd be begging before morning. My wife nodded and added, "He always comes back." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I didn't even look angry. I just stood there and memorized their faces. That night, they waited for my call. The next morning, they checked their phones. By the third day, the jokes stopped. I never called. 14 years passed. And the only person calling wasn't me. The thing about humiliation is that it has a sound. Not the obvious kind. Not shouting or breaking glass. It's quieter than that. It's the collective intake of breath from 12 people standing in a manicured garden on a Sunday afternoon in May. It's the clink of a champagne flute being set down too carefully on a wrought iron table. It's the sudden suffocating absence of the polite laughter that had been filling the air just seconds before. That's what I heard when my wife canceled my return ticket. I was standing near the rose bushes, the expensive kind that don't actually smell like anything, holding a plate of canapes I hadn't asked it for, wearing a linen shirt Diane had picked out that morning. The sun was doing that thing it does in the suburbs, that golden hour glow that makes everything look like it belongs in a lifestyle magazine. Her friends were scattered across the flagstone patio in their summer dresses and their statement jewelry, and I was the only man there, besides Richard, who was gay and therefore didn't count in Diane's social calculus. "Oh, that reminds me," Diane said, her voice cutting through a conversation about someone's kitchen renovation. She was looking at her phone, but I knew, the way you know when you've been married for 6 years, that she wasn't really looking at anything. She was performing. I need to make a quick adjustment to our travel. I should have known right then. "We're supposed to fly back tomorrow," I said, because I was still naive enough to think I was part of the we in that sentence. She smiled, not at me, at her audience. "I'm flying back tomorrow," she said, tapping her screen with one manicured fingernail. "You're going to stay here a bit longer. With your mother." The first breath, the first clink. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about teaching you that when I ask you to do something, you do it." She still hadn't looked at me. "When I ask you to wear the navy jacket to Marcus's party, you don't show up in that threadbare blazer and embarrass me. When I tell you we're spending Sunday with the Hendersons, you don't spend the entire evening talking about your job like anyone cares about middle management at a tech startup." Her friends were studying their drinks now, their shoes, the interesting pattern of the patio, stones. "Diane, I canceled your ticket," she said, and now she did look at me, and her eyes were bright with something that might have been anger but looked more like entertainment. "I moved it to next week. You can spend some time thinking about whether you want to be married to me or whether you want to keep acting like my needs are optional." I want to tell you I said something perfect in that moment, something cutting and final. But the truth is, I just stood there, holding my stupid plate of salmon and cream cheese, feeling my face burn, feeling every pair of eyes slide away from me like I was something shameful they'd accidentally witnessed. "You're not serious," I finally managed. "I'm extremely serious." She turned to her friend Jennifer, who was pretending to be fascinated by her own bracelet. "Jen, didn't I tell you he's been impossible lately?" Jennifer made a non-committal sound. "I mean, I love him," Diane continued, "but honestly, sometimes I think he forgets who paid for the wedding, who made sure he got invited to the right events, who introduced him to people who actually matter." She sipped her champagne. "A week with his mother in Philadelphia might help him remember what his life was like before me." That's when I understood. This wasn't about the navy jacket or the Hendersons. This was about power. This was about making sure I knew, and making sure everyone else knew, exactly where I stood in the hierarchy of our marriage. "Fine," I heard myself say. Diane blinked. "What?" I said fine. I set down my plate on the nearest table. "Enjoy your flight tomorrow." Don't be dramatic, Marcus. I'm not being dramatic. You wanted me to stay. I'm staying. I pulled my phone from my pocket. I'll let my mother know I'm coming for an extended visit. I could see the calculation happening behind her eyes. This wasn't the script. I was supposed to argue. I was supposed to beg her not to do this, to promise I'd be better, to give her the satisfaction of my surrender in front of her carefully curated witnesses. Well, she said, recovering with the kind of smooth pivot she was famous for in her PR job. I'm glad you're finally being reasonable. Completely reasonable, I agreed. I walked into the house, her parents' house, where we'd been staying for the weekend, and went upstairs to the guest room. I could hear the party resume below, Diane's laugh ringing out like nothing had happened, like she hadn't just tried to break me in front of an audience. I sat on the edge of the bed and looked at my phone. 97 texts in our shared history. The last one was from me that morning. Want me to grab anything from the store? No response. I opened a new message. Not to Diane. To myself. Remember this feeling, I typed. Remember what it sounds like when someone tries to make you small. Then I deleted it. I didn't need a reminder. The sound of 12 people pretending they hadn't just watched my humiliation was already branded into my memory. I would never forget. If you've ever had someone you loved treat you like a disobedient pet in front of strangers, you know what the next hour feels like. It's molten and slow. Time moves differently when you're angry. Not the hot, explosive kind of angry, but the cold kind that settles into your bones and starts planning. I didn't pack. I didn't call my mother. I sat in that guest room with its toil wallpaper and its view of the garden where my wife was holding court, and I thought about the past 6 years. We met at a networking event in Manhattan. She was beautiful in that calculated way. Perfect hair, perfect dress, the kind of woman who looked like she belonged in the VIP section of anywhere. I was 29, working 60-hour weeks at a Series B startup, wearing my only good suit, holding a beer I didn't really want. She approached me. That should have been my first clue. You look lost, she'd said. I'm not great at these things. Neither am I, but I'm better at pretending. She'd smiled. Diane Chen, I do PR for tech companies that think they're more important than they are. Marcus Webb, I work for a tech company that thinks it's more important than it is. She'd laughed. We'd talked for 2 hours. At the end of the night, she gave me her card and said, "Call me if you want to grab coffee. Or don't. I'm not desperate." But she had been, in her way. Not for me specifically. For what I represented. A blank slate. Someone who didn't know the rules of her world yet. Who would be grateful for the tour. The wedding was at the plaza. Her parents paid for everything, which Diane reminded me of approximately once a week. This is a $200,000 event, Marcus. Don't embarrass me. I had 30 people there. She had 300. I should have seen it then, the asymmetry. But I was in love, or I thought I was, or maybe I just liked the idea of being chosen by someone who seemed so sure of everything. The marriage was fine for the first year. Good, even. She helped me navigate her world of gallery openings and charity dinners and weekend getaways in the Hamptons. I played the role of the appreciative husband, the guy who got lucky, the tech bro who married up. Year 2, the cracks started showing. "Why are you wearing that?" became a common refrain. "Why did you tell that story? You sounded like an idiot." "Can you please just agree with me in front of my friends? It makes me look bad when you argue." Year 3, I started working longer hours. Not because I loved my job, but because being at work meant I didn't have to navigate the minefield of her moods. Year 4, she started taking trips without me. Girls' weekends, she called them. I didn't question it. Year 5, we stopped having sex. Not suddenly, gradually, like a dimmer switch being turned down, degree by degree, until you don't remember what the room looked like fully lit. Year 6, we arrived at this moment, me, in a guest room in Westchester, her in the garden below, laughing like she'd just won something. My phone buzzed. "Diane, don't sulk. It's unattractive. Come back down when you're ready to act like an adult. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I blocked her number. The thing about nuclear options is that they're only nuclear if the other person knows you've deployed them. Blocking Diane's number in that moment was purely for me. A private act of defiance. A tiny rebellion she wouldn't even notice until she tried to text me again. But it felt like dropping a match in a dry forest. It felt like the beginning of something. I stayed in the room until the party sounds faded. Until I heard car doors slamming, engines starting, Diane's voice calling cheerful goodbyes. Until the house settled into the particular silence of wealthy people retiring for the evening, the soft click of expensive doors, the whisper of high thread count sheets. Around 10 p.m., there was a knock. There, Marcus, Diane's mother, Patricia. Are you all right, dear? I'm fine, Patricia, just tired. Diane said you weren't feeling well. Do you need anything? Of course, Diane had reframed it. Of course, the narrative was now that I was unwell, not that I'd been publicly humiliated by her daughter. I'm okay. Thank you. Well, there's leftover quiche in the fridge if you get hungry. Footsteps retreating, a door closing. I waited another hour, then went downstairs. The kitchen was one of those magazine-perfect spaces. Marble counters, copper pots hanging from a rack, fresh flowers in a vase by the window. I found the quiche Patricia had mentioned, ate it standing over the sink, barely tasting it. Then I went to the study. Diane's father, Robert, was a retired investment banker with the kind of home office that looked like a movie set. Leather furniture, built-in bookshelves, a mahogany desk with nothing on it except a laptop and a fountain pen. I sat in his chair and opened my own laptop. First, I changed all my passwords. Email, banking, social media, everything. Diane knew most of them. We'd had that phase early in our marriage where sharing passwords felt like intimacy, like trust. Now, it felt like a liability. Second, I looked at our finances. We had a joint checking account where we both deposited money for shared expenses. I had my own savings account, about $43,000, accumulated carefully over the years. Diane had her own accounts too, though I'd never asked for details. Her job paid well, and her parents gave her money regularly, the kind of family wealth that flowed in invisible rivers. The joint account had $8,000 in it. I transferred $4,000 to my personal account, exactly half. Fair. Third, I booked a hotel room in Philadelphia for one night, starting tomorrow. Not because I was actually going to stay with my mother, because I needed somewhere to land while I figured out my next move. Fourth, I sent an email to our landlord in Manhattan. We rented a 2-bedroom in Murray Hill for $42 a month, both our names on the lease. I asked about the process for removing a tenant. Then I deleted the sent email from my account and emptied the trash. The clock on the wall ticked toward midnight. Upstairs, the house slept. Outside, the garden where I'd been humiliated was dark and empty, the rose bushes casting strange shadows under the motion sensor lights. I thought about confronting Diane in the morning, having it out before she left for the airport. But what would that accomplish? She'd already shown me who she was. She'd already made it clear that my dignity was negotiable, that my feelings were optional, that I existed in our marriage to serve her narrative. So instead, I sent one email to myself, my personal account, subject line, evidence, body, May 14th, 2011, garden party at Patricia and Robert Chen's home in Westchester. Diane canceled my return flight in front of approximately 12 of her friends to teach me obedience. Direct quote, I need to teach you that when I ask you to do something, you do it. Witnesses present Jennifer Morrison, Claire something, Richard and his partner, others I didn't recognize. Location 47 Oak Ridge Drive, Westchester, NYC. I hit send. Then I went to bed in the guest room and slept better than I had in months. Diane left at 6 a.m. I know because I was awake, lying in bed, listening to her moving around the house, the shower running, the hairdryer. The click of her suitcase wheels on the hardwood floor, the murmur of her voice talking to her mother in the kitchen. I waited until I heard the car pull away before getting up. Patricia was in the kitchen when I came down, still in her silk bathrobe, drinking coffee and reading the Times on her iPad. She looked up when I entered, and I saw something in her expression, concern, maybe, or discomfort. The look of someone who witnessed something ugly and doesn't know how to acknowledge it. "Coffee?" she offered. "Please." She poured me a cup. We stood there in silence for a moment, and I could feel the weight of all the things we weren't saying. "Marcus," she finally began, "I don't know what's going on between you and Diane." "It's fine, Patricia. But I want you to know that you're always welcome here, whatever happens." I looked at her. She was a kind woman in her way, too invested in appearances to ever truly confront her daughter's cruelty, but kind enough to feel uncomfortable watching it happen. "Thank you," I said. "I appreciate that. Are you really staying the week?" "No," I said, "and I'm leaving today. I'm going to catch a train to Philadelphia this afternoon." "Does Diane know?" "Diane knows I'm staying with my mother. The timeline doesn't matter." Patricia nodded slowly. "You should probably call her. She'll worry." I almost laughed. Diane hadn't worried about me in years, but I didn't say that. "I'll text her when I get there," I lied. I finished my coffee, went back upstairs, packed my bag. Everything I'd brought for the weekend fit easily into one carry-on. I stood in the guest room for a moment, looking around at the floral wallpaper and the antique furniture, trying to decide if I'd ever see this room again. Probably not. Robert drove me to the train station. He was a man of few words, which I'd always appreciated about him. We drove through the leafy streets of Westchester in his Mercedes, NPR playing softly on the radio, and he didn't ask me any questions until we pulled up to the station. "You all right, son?" "I will be." He nodded, reached into his pocket, and pulled out his wallet, extracted $300 bills. "Take this." "Robert, I can't." "Take it," he said firmly. "Whatever's happening, you're going to need a cushion. Consider it a loan if it makes you feel better." I took the money. "Thank you. Patricia and I," he paused, choosing his words carefully, "we love our daughter, but we're not blind." I looked at him. "She gets that from her mother," he said. "The need to control everything. Patricia's mellowed with age, but when we were younger..." He shook his head. "Just know you're not crazy. Whatever you're feeling right now." It was the most he'd ever said to me about anything personal. "I appreciate that," I said. "Good luck, Marcus." I got out of the car, grabbed my bag, watched him drive away. Then I didn't get on a train to Philadelphia. I got on a train to Grand Central. Manhattan in mid-May is a specific kind of beautiful. The winter depression has lifted, the summer humidity hasn't arrived yet, and the whole city feels possible in a way it doesn't during any other season. I emerged from Grand Central into that possibility, my bag over my shoulder, $300 in my pocket, and absolutely no plan. I could have gone to our apartment. I had keys. But the idea of walking into that space, our space, with its carefully curated furniture and its framed photos of us looking happy at events I'd mostly hated, made my skin crawl. Instead, I walked. I walked up Lex to Central Park. I walked through the park to the west side. I walked down to Times Square, through the theater district, down into Chelsea. I walked until my feet hurt, and the spring afternoon turned into evening, and I realized I was starving. I ended up at a ramen place in the East Village, sitting at the bar, eating noodles and drinking beer, and watching the door like Diane might walk through it at any moment. She wouldn't, of course. She was in Manhattan, too, probably at the apartment or at drinks with colleagues, living her life exactly as she always did, unburdened by any thought of me. My phone had been silent all day. I'd unblocked Diane's number around noon, curious to see if she'd tried to reach me. Nothing. No texts, no calls, no checking in to see if I'd arrived safely at my mother's. Just silence. It was almost funny. She'd been so confident I'd crawl back, that I'd call her, begging for forgiveness, desperate to restore the status quo. That's what the ticket cancellation had been about, forcing me to need her, to acknowledge her power over me. But I hadn't called, and she was too proud to call first. We were locked in a game of chicken, and she didn't even realize I'd already left the road. I paid for my ramen and walked to the hotel I'd booked. A decent mid-range place in Murray Hill, the kind of anonymous business hotel where you could disappear for a while. I checked in, went up to my room, and stood at the window looking out at the city lights. Then I took out my laptop and started documenting. I'm not sure when I decided I needed a record of everything. Maybe it was a survival instinct. Maybe it was the part of me that worked in tech, that understood the value of data, of receipts, of time-stamped evidence. Or maybe it was simpler than that. Maybe I just needed to write it down to make it real, to confirm that I wasn't overreacting, that what had happened actually happened. I created a new folder on my laptop, called it Personal Records, Private. Inside, I created a document. Marriage timeline. I started writing. Year 1, 2005 to 2006. Met at networking event, October 2005. First 6 months, normal dating. She was attentive, interesting, funny. Engagement, January 2006. She chose the ring. I proposed where she wanted me to propose, restaurant she picked. Looking back, I don't remember making any decisions. Wedding, May 2006, Plaza Hotel. Her guest list, $270. Mine, $30. Total cost, approximately $200,000 paid by her parents. She mentions this cost at least 2x per month. Year 2, 2006-2007. First instances of public correction. Don't tell that story, it makes you sound stupid. Why are you wearing that? Did you look in a mirror? Always in front of others. Started tracking my time. If I was 10 minutes late, she'd call repeatedly. If she was an hour late, I was being controlling for asking where she was. Financial arrangement, joint account established. I contribute 60% of my income. She contributes approximately 40%. All major purchases require her approval. She makes major purchases without consulting me. Year 3, 2007-2008. Increased time at office to avoid confrontations. She began taking trips without me. When I asked to join, "This is my time with my friends. You're being clingy." Holiday with her family, Christmas 2007. She corrected me 7 times in one dinner. Her mother looked uncomfortable, but said nothing. I kept writing, page after page of small cruelties, power plays, moments when I'd felt diminished and told myself I was being too sensitive. Patterns I hadn't wanted to see while I was inside them. By the time I finished, it was past midnight and I had 15 pages. I saved the document, backed it up to 3 different cloud services. Then I opened a new document. Next steps. The cursor blinked at me. What were my next steps? I was still legally married. We shared a lease, a bank account, a life, or the appearance of one. I couldn't just disappear, but I also couldn't go back to the apartment and pretend Sunday hadn't happened. I started typing. Immediate. This week. Stay in hotel. Do not contact Diane. Go to work as normal. Consult with divorce attorney. Research firms Monday. Short term. This month. Secure own apartment. Studio. Brooklyn. Separate all remaining joint finances. Prepare for fallout. Long term. Complete divorce. Rebuild life independently. Never, ever forget what it felt like to be treated like this. I stared at the words, divorce attorney, for a long time. Was I really doing this? Ending my marriage over one incident at a garden party? But it wasn't one incident. It was 6 years of incidents. Sunday was just the first time she'd done it in front of an audience too large for me to rationalize away. My phone buzzed. My heart jumped. Stupid, reflexive, hope that it was Diane, that she'd realized, that she was sorry. But it was my mom. Hi, honey. Diane said you might be coming to visit this week. I haven't heard from you. Let me know what days work. Love you. So Diane had told my mother I was coming, maintaining the narrative, making sure everyone knew I was the one who needed space, who needed to think, who needed to learn my lesson. I stared at the message. Then I called my mom. Marcus, hi. I was just thinking about you. Mom, I'm not coming to Philadelphia. A pause. Oh, Diane said. I know what Diane said. I'm in Manhattan. I'm staying in a hotel. Diane and I are... I stopped. Couldn't quite say it yet. We're having some problems. Oh, sweetheart, I'm so sorry. Do you want to talk about it? My mother was a gentle woman, a high school English teacher who'd raised me alone after my father left when I was 8. She'd always liked Diane, or at least liked the idea of Diane, the successful career woman, the Park Avenue lifestyle, the security I'd found by marrying into that world. Not yet, I said. I just wanted you to know I'm okay. If Diane contacts you, just don't tell her where I am. Marcus, are you sure? I'm sure, Mom. I promise I'll explain everything soon. I just need a few days. Okay, she sounded worried. But call me if you need anything at all. I will. I love you. I love you too, baby. I hung up and sat in the hotel room silence, feeling the weight of what I'd just set in motion. Once you tell people you're having problems, it becomes real. Once you start talking about it, you can't pretend everything's fine. I was really doing this. I was leaving my wife. The thought should have terrified me. Instead, it felt like exhaling after holding my breath for 6 years. Monday morning, I went to work. I'd showered in the hotel, put on one of the 3 outfits I'd brought for the weekend in Westchester, and rode the subway to our office in Somay. Like it was any other Monday. Nobody knew anything was wrong. Why would they? I'd gotten good at compartmentalizing, at keeping my professional life separate from the slow dissolution happening at home. Good weekend? My colleague James asked when I got to my desk. Quiet, I said. Yours? Took the kids to the beach. Sophie got sunburned, the usual. Normal Monday conversation, the comfortable rhythm of office life, where nobody asks follow-up questions, and everyone's weekend is condensed into a single acceptable adjective. I opened my laptop and tried to focus on work, a product launch timeline, some vendor negotiations, the usual middle management shuffle of emails and meetings. But every few minutes, I'd check my phone. Still nothing from Diane. It had been almost 48 hours since the garden party. 48 hours of absolute silence. Either she was so convinced I'd come crawling back that she wasn't concerned, or she was playing her own game, waiting for me to break first. I wasn't going to break first. At lunch, I walked to a Starbucks 3 blocks away, far enough that I wouldn't run into colleagues, and Googled divorce attorneys Manhattan. The search results were overwhelming. Big firms, small firms, specialist firms. Aggressive representation. Compassionate guidance through difficult times. Protecting your assets and your future. I didn't have assets. I had $43,000 in savings and half an apartment full of furniture that Diane had picked out. I selected a firm at random, Steinberg & Associates, a mid-sized place with decent reviews, and called. Steinberg & Associates, how may I direct your call? I'd like to schedule a consultation for a divorce. Of course. Let me transfer you to our intake coordinator. Elevator music. Then, this is Rachel. I understand you're interested in scheduling a consultation? Yes. Can I get some basic information? Your name, contact information, and a brief overview of your situation. I gave her my name and my cell number. For the overview, I said, I've been married 6 years, no children. I want to file for divorce as soon as possible. And have you discussed this with your spouse? No. I see. Do you have concerns about contested assets or custody issues? No children, minimal assets. I just want it done cleanly. Understood. We have an opening this Thursday at 3 p.m. with one of our senior associates, David Kowalski. Would that work for you? Yes. Great. I'm sending you a confirmation email with our intake forms. Please fill them out before the appointment. And, Mr. Webb, don't discuss this consultation with your spouse or post about it on social media. Anything you say from this point forward can be used in proceedings. Okay. We'll see you Thursday. I hung up and stared at my phone. I just scheduled a meeting with a divorce attorney. It was real now. Completely, irrevocably real. I ordered a sandwich I didn't want and walked back to the office, feeling like I was moving through water, like the world had shifted slightly off its axis and nobody had noticed except me. Tuesday, Diane called. I was in a meeting when my phone buzzed with her name. I let it go to voicemail. She didn't leave a message. She called again at 6 p.m. I was still at the office, staring at a spreadsheet that hadn't changed in an hour. This time I answered. Where the hell are you? No hello, just accusation. I'm at work. Don't be cute. You're not at the apartment. I checked with the doorman. He said you haven't been home since Sunday morning. I'm staying somewhere else. Staying where? Does it matter? A pause. I could hear her breathing, could picture her pacing in our apartment, phone pressed to her ear, jaw tight. Marcus, this is ridiculous. You're being dramatic. I'm being dramatic. Yes, I made a point on Sunday and you turned it into this whole thing. You canceled my ticket and humiliated me in front of your friends. I was trying to teach you. I know what you were trying to do, Diane. And it worked. I learned something. What's that supposed to mean? It means I'm done. Silence. Long enough that I thought she might have hung up. Then, done with what? With this. With us. With being your project. You're not serious. I'm extremely serious. I heard her laugh, sharp, disbelieving. You're going to throw away 6 years of marriage because I hurt your feelings? 6 years of marriage where you've treated me like an employee you're disappointed in. Yeah, Diane. I'm throwing that away. Where are you? That's not your concern. The fuck it's not. I'm your wife. Then maybe you should have acted like it. I hung up. My hands were shaking. I'd never spoken to her like that before. Never pushed back. Never challenged her framing. Never claimed my own anger as righteous. It felt terrifying. It felt incredible. She called back immediately. I declined the call. She called again. Declined. Again. Declined. On the 4th call, I blocked her number. Then I packed up my laptop and left the office. The hotel was starting to feel temporary in a way that made me anxious. I couldn't stay there indefinitely. It was costing $200 a night, and while I could afford it for a week or two, it wasn't sustainable long term. I needed to find an apartment. Wednesday after work, I walked through the East Village looking at for rent signs. Everything was either too expensive or too depressing or both. A basement studio with no windows for $1,800. A railroad apartment in a building that smelled like cat piss for $2,100. A cozy room in a 3-bedroom share that was clearly someone's living room with a curtain hung across it for $1,200. I was about to give up when I saw a sign in a window on Avenue B. Studio available. $1,650. No broker fee. I called the number. A man with a thick Russian accent answered. Yes, yes. Apartment. You want to see? When can I come by? Now is good. I am here. 20 minutes later, I was standing in a 4th-floor walk-up, looking at a studio that was small but clean. Hardwood floors, exposed brick, a kitchen the size of a closet, a bathroom with a shower but no tub, one window overlooking the street, maybe 400 square feet total. Is furnished, the landlord said, pointing to a bed, a desk, a small table with 2 chairs. Previous tenant, she leave furniture. You take or I throw away. I'll take it. Good, good. You have job? I need pay stubs, references. I have a job. I can get you pay stubs. I hesitated. I'm in the middle of a divorce. I have good credit, steady income. I just need somewhere to land. He waved a hand. Is okay. Divorce is normal. You give me first, last, and deposit. 3 months. You move in when? This weekend? Saturday, okay. I give you keys Saturday morning, 9 o'clock. We shook hands. I felt something release in my chest. Relief. Or maybe just the knowledge that I had somewhere to go. Somewhere that was mine, and only mine. I walked back to the hotel, feeling lighter than I had in days. Thursday at 3 p.m., I sat in a conference room at Steinberg and Associates, across from David Kowalski, a divorce attorney in his early 40s, with salt and pepper hair, and the calm demeanor of someone who'd heard every marriage horror story there was. "Thanks for coming in, Marcus," he said, glancing at the intake forms I'd filled out. "I've reviewed your paperwork. 6 years married, no children, no significant joint assets. Is that accurate?" "Yes." "And you haven't discussed filing with your spouse yet?" I told her I was done with the marriage. I didn't mention divorce explicitly. "Understood. Walk me through what brought you here." I told him about Sunday. About the garden party, the canceled ticket, the public humiliation. About the 6 years of smaller humiliations that led up to it. He listened without interrupting, taking notes occasionally. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair to... "Okay, here's what you need to know. New York is a no-fault divorce state, which means you don't have to prove wrongdoing, just that the marriage is irretrievably broken. Given that you have no children and no significant assets to divide, this should be relatively straightforward." "How long does it take?" "If she doesn't contest it, 3 to 6 months. If she does contest, if she drags her feet, challenges the terms, it could take a year or more." "What are the chances she contests?" "Based on what you've told me, she sounds like someone who likes control, so yeah, there's a decent chance she'll make this difficult." I nodded. I'd expected that. "What do I need to do?" "First, you need to decide if you're filing for divorce or legal separation. Legal separation is reversible. Divorce is final. Which do you want?" "Divorce." "Okay. Next, we'll draft a summons and complaint. Once it's ready, you'll have to serve her, meaning legally notify her that you're filing. We can arrange for a process server to do that." "What happens after she's served?" "She has 20 days to respond. If she agrees to the terms, we move forward with negotiations. If she contests, we start the discovery process, gathering financial records, depositions, all the fun stuff. And what about the apartment? We're both on the lease. You'll need to negotiate who keeps it or whether you both leave. Same with any joint bank accounts. My advice, start separating your finances now. Open your own accounts, redirect your paycheck, minimize any transactions through joint accounts. I already did that. Moved half the money out of our joint checking." "Good. Keep records of everything. Every email, every text, every financial transaction. The more documentation you have, the better." "I've been documenting." "Even better. Now, let's talk about fees. Our retainer for an uncontested divorce is $5,000. If it becomes contested, we bill hourly at $3.50. Think you can manage that?" I thought about my savings, about the $43,000 that was supposed to be my safety net. "Yes." "Good. I'll draft the paperwork this week. Plan on coming back Monday to review and sign. Once you sign, we serve her. And Marcus?" "Yeah?" "Brace yourself. However you think she's going to react, it'll probably be worse." The paperwork was ready by Monday. I sat in David Kowalski's office, reading through the summons and complaint, seeing my marriage reduced to legal language. The plaintiff and defendant were married on May 14, 2006, in New York County. The marriage has broken down irretrievably. There are no children of this marriage. The plaintiff seeks a judgment of divorce. "Everything look accurate?" David asked. "Yes." "Then sign here, here, and here." I signed. My signature looked shaky, unfamiliar. "We'll serve her this week. I recommend having the process server go to her workplace during business hours. Public location, less chance of a scene. She works at a PR firm in Midtown. Chen and Associates. Perfect. We'll send someone Thursday afternoon. Is there anything you want to tell her before she's served?" I thought about that. Diane still didn't know I'd hired a lawyer. Still thought this was a temporary tantrum that I'd get over. Serving her with divorce papers was going to detonate whatever remained of our marriage. No, I said. Let her find out this way. David nodded. All right. Keep your phone on Thursday. She's going to call when she gets served. You don't have to answer, but be prepared. I spent the next 3 days in a strange liminal state. Going to work, moving into my new studio apartment on Saturday, unpacking my single suitcase, and trying to make 4 square feet feel like a life. The furnished apartment helped. I didn't have to buy a bed or a desk. I just had to exist in this small, spare space and figure out who I was without Diane. Thursday afternoon, I was in a meeting when my phone started buzzing. I glanced at the screen. Diane calling from a number I didn't recognize. She'd probably figured out I'd blocked her and was calling from her office line. I declined the call. She called again. Declined. A text from the unknown number. Answer the fucking phone. Another call. Declined. Then a call from my mother's number. I stepped out of the meeting and answered. Marcus, Diane just called me. My mom sounded panicked. Mom, it's okay. She said you had her served with divorce papers at her office. Is that true? Yes. Marcus, what is going on? You said you were having problems, not that you were getting divorced. I'm getting divorced, Mom. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. It's been a lot. But honey, don't you think you should try counseling first? Or at least talk to her? I tried talking to her for 6 years. It didn't work. She sounds devastated. I almost laughed. Devastated. Diane wasn't devastated. She was furious that I'd embarrassed her at work, that I'd taken control of the narrative, that I'd done something she didn't see coming. I'm sure she does, I said. But this is happening, Mom. I need you to trust me on this. I just don't want you to make a decision you'll regret. I won't regret this, she sighed. Okay, but call me later, okay? I'm worried about you. I will. I love you. I love you too. I hung up and went back into the meeting, but I couldn't focus. My phone kept buzzing. Diane calling from different numbers, texting from different numbers, trying to reach me however she could. Finally, at 5 p.m., I looked at the messages. We need to talk. Now. You ambushed me at my office, in front of my colleagues. You're such a coward you couldn't even tell me to my face? Fine. You want a divorce? You'll get one. But don't think you're getting anything. My parents paid for our wedding, our apartment, everything. You're nothing without me, Marcus. You'll figure that out soon enough. I read them all, felt the familiar guilt rising, the automatic response to her anger that I'd been conditioned to feel for 6 years, the voice in my head that said maybe she's right, maybe you're overreacting, maybe you should apologize. Then I screenshotted every message and sent them to David Kowalski with a note. She's been served. His response came back in 2 minutes. Perfect. Don't respond to her. Let her anger burn itself out. The more she texts, the better our case. I blocked all the new numbers she'd used and went back to work. The weekend was quiet. I stayed in my studio, unpacking the few belongings I had, trying to make the space feel like home. I bought groceries, just basics, because I'd never really learned to cook for myself. Diane had always handled meals, or we'd ordered in, or we'd eaten at restaurants. The idea of feeding myself felt strange and new. Saturday night, I made pasta, burned the garlic, overcooked the noodles, ate it anyway, sitting at the small table by the window, watching the street below fill with people heading out for the night. My phone was silent. Diane had finally stopped trying to reach me. Sunday, I went for a walk, ended up in Central Park, found a bench near the lake, and watched people go by, couples holding hands, families with strollers, solo joggers with expensive headphones. Everyone living their lives, oblivious to the fact that mine had just imploded. I pulled out my phone and opened my email, scrolled back to May 14th, the night of the garden party, and found the email I'd sent to myself. Evidence. I opened a new document on my phone and started a list. Things I want in the divorce. 1. Freedom. 2. My savings account, untouched. 3. My personal belongings. 4. To never have to see her friends again. 5. To never have to pretend I'm someone I'm not. 6. To never have to ask permission to exist. I stared at the list for a long time. Then I added one more item. 7. To remember what it feels like to respect myself. On Monday, David called. We got her response. That was fast. She hired Margaret Sullivan, one of the more aggressive attorneys in the city. They filed a counterclaim this morning. My stomach dropped. What does that mean? It means she's not making this easy. She's contesting the divorce, claiming the marriage isn't irretrievably broken, requesting counseling and a trial separation before any final judgment. She doesn't want counseling. She wants to drag this out. Exactly. It's a delay tactic. She's hoping you'll give up or cave to whatever terms she wants. I'm not giving up. I didn't think you would, but I need to be straight with you, Marcus. This is going to get expensive. If she's fighting every step of the way, we're looking at months of back and forth, potentially depositions, court appearances. You're going to burn through that retainer fast. I thought about my $43,000 in savings, about how quickly legal fees could eat through it. What are my options? You can agree to the trial separation and counseling. Buy yourself some time, keep costs down, see if she eventually agrees to settle. Or you fight. You push forward with the divorce, go through discovery, make your case to a judge. It'll cost more, take longer, but if you're committed to ending this marriage, it's the only way. I want to fight. Okay, then let's fight. Discovery is a legal term that means both sides get to dig through the other's life looking for leverage. Financial records, emails, text messages, witness statements, everything is fair game. David sent me a list of documents I needed to provide. 3 years of tax returns, all bank statements for the past 2 years, credit card statements, proof of income, any prenuptial agreements, we didn't have one, documentation of separate property, anything I owned before the marriage. I spent 3 evenings gathering paperwork, printing statements, organizing everything into labeled folders. It was tedious and invasive, laying out my financial life in black and white. But it was also clarifying. Looking at our spending over the past 6 years, I could see the pattern. Money flowed from my account to our joint account to Diane's priorities. Dinners at expensive restaurants I hadn't chosen, vacations I hadn't wanted to take. A 3-Mauser handbag she'd bought herself for my birthday from both of us. Rent on an apartment I could barely afford, but she insisted we needed. I'd been funding a lifestyle that had never been mine. I documented everything, made a spreadsheet, highlighted the questionable purchases, sent it all to David. His response, "This is good, really good. Keep digging." Meanwhile, Diane's lawyer was doing the same thing to me. I got a notice requiring me to sit for a deposition in 2 weeks. Margaret Sullivan wanted to question me under oath about the marriage, my finances, my reasons for filing. It's standard procedure, David explained when I called him, panicking slightly. They're going to ask why you want the divorce, whether there's someone else, whether you've hidden any assets. Just tell the truth. Don't volunteer extra information. And whatever you do, don't let them get under your skin. What if I say something stupid? I'll be there. If a question is inappropriate, I'll object. Trust me, Marcus. You're not the first person to sit for a deposition. The 2 weeks before the deposition were surreal. I went to work, came home to my studio, avoided all contact with Diane. She'd stopped trying to reach me directly, but I knew she was out there, living in our old apartment, spinning some narrative to her friends about my betrayal. I wondered if she'd told them about the garden party, about how this all started. Probably not. My mother called a few times. I kept the conversations brief, reassured her I was fine, dodged her questions about whether I was sure I was doing the right thing. You just seem so calm, she said during one call. I expected you to be more upset. I am upset, I told her. But I'm also relieved. Does that make sense? I think so. I just want you to be happy, honey. I will be. Once this is over. The night before the deposition, I couldn't sleep. I lay in my small bed in my small apartment, staring at the ceiling, running through possible questions in my head. Why do you want a divorce? Because my wife treated me like a disobedient pet. Can you be more specific? She canceled my return ticket in front of her friends to teach me a lesson, and that's worth ending a 6-year marriage over? That was the moment I realized I'd been accepting unacceptable behavior for 6 years. Yes, it's worth it. I rehearsed it over and over until the words lost meaning, until I could say them without emotion, like I was reading from a script. At 7 a.m., I gave up on sleep and made coffee. At 9 a.m., I met David at his office. At 10 a.m., we walked into a conference room where Margaret Sullivan and Diane were waiting. I hadn't seen Diane in person since the morning she left Westchester for the airport, almost a month now. She looked the same. Perfect hair, perfect makeup, perfect outfit. But there was something brittle in her expression, something sharp around the eyes. She didn't acknowledge me when I walked in. Margaret Sullivan did, though. She stood and extended her hand. Mr. Webb, Margaret Sullivan, thank you for coming. Of course, I said, shaking her hand. We all sat. A court reporter sat up in the corner. David put a hand on my arm, a small gesture of support, and nodded toward the reporter. State your full name for the record, Margaret began. Marcus Andrew Webb. And you understand you're under oath, Mr. Webb? Yes. Good. Let's begin. For the next 3 hours, Margaret Sullivan asked me questions. Some were straightforward. Where did I work? How much did I earn? What were my assets? Some were invasive. Had I been unfaithful during the marriage? Had Diane? Did I have a substance abuse problem? Some were designed to rattle me. Why did I think I deserved anything from this divorce when Diane's family had funded our lifestyle? David objected to that one. Irrelevant and argumentative. Margaret smiled. Withdrawn. Mr. Webb, let's talk about the incident you cited as the reason for filing. The garden party in Westchester on May 14th. Can you walk me through what happened? I did. Calmly, factually, no emotion. And this incident, your wife canceling your return ticket, this was enough for you to abandon your marriage? I didn't abandon anything. I left a situation where I was being humiliated. Humiliated. She said it like the word was funny. Mr. Webb, would you say you're sensitive to criticism? I'd say I'm sensitive to being treated with disrespect. And you felt disrespected when your wife asked you to stay with your mother for a week? I felt disrespected when she canceled my ticket in front of an audience to teach me obedience. Those were her words. Teach me obedience. Did anyone else hear her say that? 12 people heard her say that. Can you name them? Jennifer Morrison, Claire, I don't remember her last name, Richard and his partner, I don't know their last names, and others I didn't recognize. So you can only definitively name one witness. I can name one witness by full name. The others were there. They heard it. Mr. Webb, isn't it possible you're overreacting to a marital disagreement? That you're using this one incident to justify a decision you'd already made? I looked at Diane. She was staring at the table, jaw tight. No, I said. I'm using 6 years of similar incidents to justify a decision I should have made a long time ago. Margaret leaned back. Interesting. Can you cite other incidents? And then, because I'd been documenting everything, because I'd spent hours writing it all down, I did. I cited the Christmas dinner in 2077 where she corrected me 7 times. I cited the time she'd told me not to tell certain stories because they made me sound stupid. I cited the financial control, the way every purchase I made required her approval while she spent freely. I cited the social isolation, the way her friends became our only friends, the way my own friendships atrophied because they weren't useful to her network. I cited 2 hours of small cruelties, and I watched Diane's face get tighter and tighter, and I felt something close to vindication. When I finished, Margaret looked at her notes. "That's quite a list, Mr. Webb." "You asked." "I did." She smiled, cold and professional. No further questions. After the deposition, David and I walked back to his office in silence. Once we were in the conference room, door closed. He grinned. "You did great." "It didn't feel great. Trust me. You were calm, factual, credible, and you gave us a lot of material to work with. The fact that you could cite specific incidents, dates, that's powerful. What happens now? Now we wait for them to make a move. Either they'll propose a settlement or they'll keep fighting. Which do you think?" "Honestly, I think Diane's going to keep fighting. But her lawyer's smart. She knows a prolonged battle is expensive and potentially damaging to both of you. There's a chance she'll advise Diane to settle. And if she doesn't, then we go to trial. And we win." I wanted to believe him, but I'd been married to Diane for 6 years. I knew she didn't back down. I knew she'd rather burn everything to the ground than admit she was wrong. This was going to get worse before it got better. 2 days after the deposition, I got a call from our landlord. "Mr. Webb, this is Gary Chen, your landlord at Murray Hill. I wanted to give you a heads up. Your wife called this morning and said you'd moved out, that she'd be the only tenant going forward." "She what?" "She said you abandoned the apartment, that she's taking over the full lease. I told her I couldn't make any changes without both tenants' consent, but I wanted to let you know. I didn't abandon anything. I'm still on that lease. That's what I thought. Look, I don't want to get in the middle of a divorce, but legally, you're both responsible until the lease ends or one of you formally removes themselves. If you want to keep your rights to the apartment, you should probably respond in writing." I called David immediately. "She's trying to claim I abandoned the apartment. Can she do that?" "Not legally. You're both on the lease. But she can make it difficult for you to go back there. My advice? Decide if you actually want the apartment. If you don't, let her have it and negotiate compensation. If you do want it, we can fight for it, but it's going to get messy." "I don't want it. I just don't want her to think she can push me around." "Fair. I'll send a letter to her attorney stating that you're willing to relinquish your lease rights in exchange for fair compensation. Let's say 3 months' rent paid directly to you. That's 12,600. It's reasonable." "Do you think she'll agree?" "Probably not immediately, but it establishes that you're willing to negotiate, which looks good if we end up in front of a judge." The letter went out that afternoon. Margaret Sullivan's response came back 2 days later. "My client declines to pay Mr. Webb for abandoning his responsibilities. She will assume the full lease at no cost to him." "So she wants the apartment but doesn't want to pay me for it," I said when David called to tell me. "Exactly. Which is absurd, but consistent with everything you've told me about her." "What do? We hold firm. We don't let her have the apartment for free. If she wants it, she pays. If she doesn't want to pay, we go to court and let a judge decide." Meanwhile, Diane was escalating in other ways. She called my boss. I found out when my manager, Sarah, pulled me into a conference room on a Thursday afternoon. "Marcus, I got a strange call yesterday. From your wife." My stomach dropped. "What did she say?" "She said she was concerned about you, that you were going through a difficult time and might not be performing at your usual level. She asked if I'd noticed any changes in your work." Jesus Christ. I told her that your personal life is none of my business and that your work has been excellent. "But Marcus, what's going on?" "We're getting divorced. She's trying to sabotage me." Sarah nodded slowly. "Okay. Well, for what it's worth, your work has been fine. Better than fine. But if you need any time off, or if there's anything HR should know, I just need her to stop calling my workplace. I can't control what she does, but I can tell you that if she calls again, I won't engage. And if you want to file a complaint with HR about harassment, you can do that." Thank you. That night, I documented the call in my records. June 8, 2011. Diane contacted my manager at work, claiming concern about my performance. Manager confirmed my work has been excellent and declined to engage further. Then I sent an email to David. She's calling my workplace now. What can I do? His response: document everything. If she contacts your employer again, we can file for a restraining order based on harassment. A restraining order against my wife. The thought was surreal, but so was everything else about this process. June turned into July. Summer in Manhattan, the kind of heat that makes the subway unbearable and the streets shimmer with humidity. I walked to work most mornings just to avoid the crush of bodies underground. Diane and I still hadn't spoken directly. Everything went through lawyers now. Formal letters, legal language, positions and counterpositions. She wanted the apartment, the furniture, half my savings, and for me to pay her legal fees because I'd initiated this unnecessary divorce. I wanted a clean break, my savings intact, and to never see her again. We were at an impasse. David filed a motion to compel settlement negotiations. The judge granted it. We had a court date in August for a settlement conference, basically a last-ditch effort to resolve things before going to trial. Be prepared, David told me. Settlement conferences can get heated. She'll be there. You'll have to sit in the same room and negotiate face-to-face. I can handle it. I know you can. But Marcus, don't let her get to you. Whatever she says, whatever buttons she tries to push, stay calm. The calmer you are, the worse she looks. I thought about the deposition, about how I'd stayed factual and steady while listing 6 years of her behavior. I could do that again. I hoped. The settlement conference was scheduled for August 15th at the New York County Supreme Court. I took the morning off work, put on my best suit, the navy one Diane had always hated, and met David in the courthouse lobby. Ready? He asked. As I'll ever be. We took the elevator to the 4th floor, walked down a hallway lined with courtrooms and conference rooms, and entered a small, windowless room where Margaret Sullivan and Diane were already waiting. Diane looked tired, thinner than I remembered. Her hair was still perfect, her outfit still expensive. But there was something diminished about her, like she'd been running on fury for 3 months and was finally starting to burn out. She didn't look at me when I sat down. The mediator, a woman in her 60s named Judge Patricia Reeves, reviewed our case files and looked up at us over her reading glasses. All right, we're here to see if we can reach a settlement that avoids trial. I've reviewed both of your positions and frankly, they're not that far apart. Mr. Webb, you're willing to relinquish your lease rights and all furniture in exchange for keeping your savings intact. Mrs. Webb, you want the apartment and furniture, but also want half of Mr. Webb's savings, and for him to cover your legal fees. Is that accurate? Yes, Your Honor, Margaret said. And Mr. Webb, you're opposed to paying Mrs. Webb's legal fees or giving her half your savings? Yes, Your Honor, David said. My client's savings are separate property, accumulated before and during the marriage through his sole income. Mrs. Webb has her own income and family resources. There's no grounds for splitting his savings. Mrs. Webb's family funded the majority of the marital lifestyle, Margaret countered. The wedding, vacations, supplemental living expenses, which were gifts, David interrupted. Not loans, not investments, gifts. My client doesn't owe reimbursement for gifts. Judge Reeves held up a hand. Let's try to find middle ground. Mrs. Webb, would you be willing to drop your request for Mr. Webb's savings in exchange for him paying a portion of your legal fees? Diane spoke for the first time. He destroyed our marriage. Why should I pay for his decision? I felt David's hand on my arm, a reminder to stay quiet. Mrs. Webb, the judge said, divorce is rarely one person's fault. If we went to trial, I'd be looking at both of your behaviors. From what I've read, there's blame on both sides. There's no blame on my side, Diane said, her voice rising. I was a good wife. I supported him, introduced him to people who mattered, gave him a life he never could have built on his own. And you humiliated him in public, the judge said, glancing at her notes. According to his testimony, Diane's face flushed. He's exaggerating. Mrs. Webb, I'm not here to litigate the past. I'm here to help you both move forward. So let me ask you directly. What do you want? Diane looked at me for the first time. Her eyes were hard, cold. I want him to admit he's wrong. I want him to apologize. And I want him to understand what he's throwing away. The room went silent. Judge Reeves leaned back in her chair. Mr. Webb, do you have a response? I looked at Diane, at the woman I'd married 6 years ago, the woman I'd thought I'd spend my life with, the woman who'd just asked me to apologize for having boundaries. No, I said. I have nothing to say to her. Diane's expression crumpled, just for a second, just enough for me to see the hurt underneath the anger, and then it hardened again. Fine, she said. Then we go to trial. Margaret Sullivan put a hand on her arm. Diane, let's think about this. No, if he wants a divorce, he can fight for it. She stood up and walked out of the room. The judge looked at Margaret. Counsel. Margaret sighed. I'll talk to her. Give me a week. You have 3 days, Judge Reeves said. After that, we're setting a trial date. David and I left the courthouse and walked to a diner 2 blocks away. I ordered coffee I didn't drink and stared out the window at the street. That went about as well as expected, David said. She's going to drag this out as long as possible, isn't she? Probably. But Marcus, here's the thing. She's not negotiating from a position of strength. She's negotiating from ego, and ego is expensive. The longer this goes, the more it costs her too. She has family money, I don't. True, but you have something she doesn't. What's that? You've already moved on. You're living your life, going to work, building something new. She's still living in the apartment you shared, still trying to win a fight that doesn't matter anymore. That's exhausting. Eventually she'll get tired. How long is eventually? I don't know, but I've seen this before. The angry spouse always thinks they can outlast the calm one. They're almost always wrong. I wanted to believe him, but 3 months into this divorce, I was starting to understand something fundamental about Diane. She would rather be right than be happy. And that made her dangerous. Margaret Sullivan called 3 days later with a revised offer. Diane would keep the apartment and all furniture. She would drop her request for half my savings. In exchange, I would pay $7,500 toward her legal fees and agree to a 6-month waiting period before the divorce was finalized. A cooling-off period to ensure this was really what I wanted. It's a compromise, David said when he called to tell me. Not a great one, but better than trial. The 6-month waiting period is bullshit. I agree, but it's also harmless. You're already separated. 6 more months doesn't change anything except the paperwork. What about the $7,500? That's negotiable. I'll counter with $5,000 and see what they say. We went back and forth for another week. Eventually, we settled on $5,500. I would pay half up front, half when the divorce was finalized. Diane would get the apartment. We would both walk away, with our own savings intact. It wasn't perfect, but it was done. I signed the agreement on August 30th, 2011. The 6-month waiting period meant the divorce wouldn't be final until February 2012. But I didn't care. The hard part was over. The fighting was done. I paid the first $2,750 to Margaret Sullivan's office and felt a weight lift. Then I went back to living my life. Fall in New York is its own kind of magic. The heat breaks, the leaves turn, the whole city feels like a fresh start. I settled into my studio apartment, got a small raise at work, started going to the gym again. I'd lost weight during the divorce. Stress will do that. And I wanted to feel strong again, capable, in control of my own body. I dated a little, nothing serious. A few drinks with a woman from a dating app, a coffee with someone I met at a work event. I wasn't ready for anything real, but it felt good to remember that I was allowed to be wanted, that my worth wasn't tied to Diane's assessment of me. In October, my mom came to visit. She'd been worried about me, wanted to see the apartment, wanted to make sure I was okay. "It's small," she said, looking around the studio. "It's mine." She hugged me. "I'm proud of you, honey. I know this hasn't been easy." It's been worth it. We spent the weekend walking through Central Park, eating at cheap restaurants I'd discovered, talking about everything except the divorce. She told me about her students, about the garden she was planting, about her book club. I told her about work, about my new gym routine, about the bagel place on the corner that made the best everything bagel I'd ever had. "You seem lighter," she said on Sunday, right before she left for Penn Station. "I feel lighter." "Good. You deserve to be happy, Marcus." After she left, I sat in my apartment and realized she was right. I was happy. Not in the explosive, euphoric way, just in the quiet, steady way of someone who'd stopped living, in fear of the next criticism, the next correction, the next public humiliation. I was free. The divorce was finalized on February 14th, 2012, Valentine's Day. The irony wasn't lost on me. David called to tell me the judge had signed off on everything. It was official. I was no longer married to Diane Chen. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Relieved." "Good. Go celebrate. You've earned it." I didn't celebrate exactly. I went to work, came home, made dinner, watched a movie. Just a normal Tuesday. But the knowledge that it was over, that I'd never have to negotiate with Diane again, never have to sit in a conference room defending my right to dignity, felt better than any party. A week later, I got my final financial statement from Margaret Sullivan's office. I owed the remaining $20,050 in legal fees. I paid it immediately, wanting to close that last connection to Diane. And then, for the first time in 9 months, I had nothing to do related to the divorce. It was just over. I expected to feel something dramatic, triumph, maybe, or grief, but mostly I just felt tired and ready to move on. The thing about rebuilding your life is that it happens slowly, in increments so small you don't notice them until you look back and realize how far you've traveled. Spring 2012, I got promoted at work. Senior Product Manager, a title that came with a $20,000 raise and actual decision-making authority. I moved out of my studio and into a one-bedroom in Williamsburg. More expensive, but worth it for the space and the light, the feeling of progress. Summer 2012, I started running. Not because I particularly enjoyed it, but because I needed a goal, something to work toward that was entirely mine. I signed up for a half marathon in October and started training, early morning runs along the East River, watching the city wake up, feeling my body get stronger. Fall 2012, I ran the half marathon and finished in under 2 hours. My legs hurt for a week, but I'd done it. I'd set a goal and achieved it without asking anyone's permission, without worrying if it made me look stupid or if I was spending my time wrong. Winter 2012. I started dating someone seriously for the first time since Diane. Her name was Rachel. She worked in publishing, and she was kind in a way that felt radical after 6 years of criticism. We'd met at a friend's birthday party, bonded over a shared love of terrible action movies, and started seeing each other once or twice a week. "You're very self-sufficient," she said one night, lying in my bed in Williamsburg, her head on my chest. "Is that bad?" "No, it's just interesting. Like you've built this whole life that doesn't require anyone else." "I guess I have. Does that include me? Am I optional?" I thought about that, about the difference between being with someone because you needed them and being with someone because you wanted them. "You're optional," I said, "but I'm choosing you anyway." She smiled. "Good answer." We dated for 6 months. It ended amicably when she got a job offer in San Francisco, and we both agreed long distance wasn't what either of us wanted. I was sad, but not devastated. I'd learned the difference. Years passed. 2013, I changed jobs, moved to a tech company that was actually growing, actually doing interesting work, doubled my salary, bought real furniture instead of the second-hand stuff I'd been living with. 2014, I started traveling. Real traveling, the kind Diane had always planned, but I'd never enjoyed because it was always on her terms, always to places she wanted to go, always on her schedule. I went to Thailand by myself for 2 weeks, got food poisoning in Bangkok, watched the sunrise at Angkor Wat, spent 3 days on a beach in the south, reading paperback novels and eating fresh mango. 2015, I met someone else. Not Rachel, someone new. Anna. She was a graphic designer, funny and strange and completely unconcerned with impressing anyone. We moved in together after a year, got a dog, built a life that felt easy in a way I didn't know relationships could feel. "Do you ever think about your ex-wife?" she asked me once, out of nowhere, while we were making dinner. "Sometimes." "What do you think about?" "How different my life would be if I'd stayed." "Do you regret leaving?" "Not for a second." And I didn't. The further I got from that marriage, the clearer it became how much of myself I'd lost trying to be who Diane wanted me to be. Getting that self back, rebuilding it piece by piece, was the best thing I'd ever done. 2016 through 2024, blurred together in the way good years do. Work, travel, relationships. Anna and I got married in 2018, a small ceremony in her parents' backyard, just family and close friends, nothing like the plaza spectacle with Diane. We bought an apartment in Brooklyn, adopted another dog, talked about kids, but decided we were happy as we were. I thought about Diane less and less. She became a story I told sometimes, when the conversation turned to exes or difficult times. I was married before, I'd say. It didn't work out. Most people didn't ask for details. I didn't keep tabs on her, didn't look her up on social media, didn't ask mutual acquaintances about her life. As far as I was concerned, she was part of a past I'd moved beyond. Until October 2024. Until my phone started ringing with a number I didn't recognize. Until I saw 98 missed calls and realized that Diane, after 14 years of silence, was trying to reach me. The first call came on a Tuesday. I was in a meeting at work, phone on silent, so I didn't see it until afterward. Unknown number, no voicemail. I deleted the notification and forgot about it. The second call came an hour later. Same number, still no voicemail. The third call came at 6 p.m., right as I was leaving the office. This time I answered, "Hello?" Silence. Then, "Marcus." I stopped walking. The voice was familiar in a way that made my stomach drop. Older, maybe, rougher around the edges, but unmistakably Diane. "Who is this?" I asked, even though I knew. "It's Diane. Diane Chen. I need to talk to you." 14 years. 14 years of silence, and now she needed to talk to me. "How did you get this number?" It doesn't matter, please. I really need to talk to you." "I don't think we have anything to talk about." "Marcus, please. Can we meet? For coffee? Somewhere public?" "Why?" "Because I need to explain something. Her voice cracked. "Because I owe you an apology." I stood on the sidewalk outside my office building, commuters flowing past me, and tried to process what I was hearing. Diane Chen, the woman who'd humiliated me in front of her friends, who'd fought me for 9 months in divorce court, who'd called my workplace to try to sabotage me, that woman wanted to apologize. "I don't need your apology," I said. "I know, but I need to give it. Please, Marcus, 1 hour. That's all I'm asking." Every instinct I had said to hang up, to block the number, delete the call log, pretend this conversation never happened. But there was something in her voice, desperation maybe, or genuine regret that made me pause. 1 hour, I said. Thursday at 3. There's a coffee shop in Midtown near Bryant Park. I'll text you the address. Thank you. Thank you, Marcus. I hung up before she could finish. I didn't tell Anna about the call that night. I told myself it was because I didn't want to worry her, but really, I just needed to sit with it alone for a while. The idea that Diane was back in my life, even peripherally, felt invasive. Like a door I'd sealed shut was suddenly cracked open again. Wednesday, I told Anna over dinner. My ex-wife called me yesterday. Anna looked up from her pasta. The ex-wife? The one from the garden party story? That one. What did she want? She wants to meet. Says she needs to apologize. And you said yes? I said I'd give her 1 hour. Anna studied me. How do you feel about that? I don't know. Curious, maybe. Or just, I want to see what she wants. Closure, probably. Do you need closure? I thought about that. No, but maybe she does. Just be careful, okay? People don't usually resurface after 14 years with good intentions. I will. Thursday afternoon, I left work early and walked to the coffee shop I'd chosen, a generic Starbucks-type place, busy enough that we wouldn't be alone, but anonymous enough that no one would care about two people having an intense conversation. Diane was already there when I arrived. She looked different, older, obviously. We were both in our 40s now, no longer the people we'd been in 2011. But it was more than that. She looked tired, worn. The sharp edges I remembered had softened into something that looked almost fragile. She stood when she saw me. Marcus, thank you for coming. You said, who? 1 hour. Right. Yes. Can I get you coffee? I'm fine. We sat. The silence stretched between us, awkward and heavy. You look good, she finally said. Healthy. Thanks. I heard you got remarried. Anna, right? I felt a flash of irritation. How do you know that? I looked you up. On LinkedIn. I saw her tagged in a photo from your wedding. You've been keeping tabs on me. No, not like that. She closed her eyes. I wanted to see if you were okay, if you were happy. I am. Good. That's good. Another silence. Diane, what do you want? She opened her purse and pulled out a folded piece of paper, slid it across the table to me. I want you to read this, and then I want to explain. I unfolded the paper. It was a printout of an email dated June 2024 from someone named Dr. Laura Simmons at NYU Medical Center. Dear Ms. Chen, I'm writing to inform you that your recent tests have confirmed a diagnosis of stage 3 ovarian cancer. We'll need to schedule a follow-up appointment to discuss treatment options. I stopped reading, looked up at Diane. You have cancer. I did. I just finished treatment. Chemo, surgery, the whole thing. I'm in remission now, but... She swallowed. It was bad. Really bad. And it made me think about my life. About the people I've hurt. About you. I didn't know what to say. I know this is a lot to drop on you, she continued, and I'm not asking for anything. When I thought I might die, one of the things I couldn't stop thinking about was what I did to you. How I treated you, the garden party, all of it. Diane, please, let me finish. I was terrible to you. I know that now. I spent years telling myself I was right, that you were too sensitive, that you overreacted. But after the diagnosis, I started going to therapy, really digging into why I acted the way I did. And the truth is, I was scared. Scared of what? Of not being in control, of not being perfect, of people seeing that I didn't have everything figured out. So I controlled you instead. I made you into this project, this thing I could manage, because it was easier than dealing with my own shit. I sat there processing. This was not the conversation I'd expected to have. I'm sorry, Marcus. I'm so, so sorry for the garden party, for the divorce, for calling your workplace and trying to sabotage you, for all of it. You deserved so much better than what I gave you." She was crying now, quietly, tears running down her face. I should have felt vindicated. This was the apology I'd never gotten, the acknowledgement that I'd been right to leave. But mostly I just felt sad. "I appreciate you telling me this," I said, "and I'm glad you're in remission. But Diane, I moved on a long time ago. I don't think about you. I don't think about the garden party. It's not part of my life anymore." "I know, and I don't expect you to forgive me, or to want me in your life, or anything like that. I just needed you to know that I understand what I did, that I'm sorry. That's all." I looked at this woman I'd once loved, once married, once fought in court, saw the years in her face, the sickness, the regret. "I forgive you," I said. She looked up, surprised. "What?" "I forgive you. Not because you deserve it, but because I don't want to carry it anymore. You hurt me. You made me feel small, but I'm not small anymore. And holding on to anger about who you were 14 years ago doesn't serve me. Marcus, but I don't want to be friends. I don't want to stay in touch. This is closure, okay? For both of us. You got to apologize. I got to say I forgive you, and now we go back to our separate lives." She nodded, wiping her eyes. "Okay, thank you. For meeting me. For listening." I stood up. "Take care of yourself, Diane. You too." I walked out of the coffee shop, into the October afternoon, and felt the door I'd cracked open swing shut again. Closure. That night, I told Anna everything. We were lying in bed, the dogs curled up at our feet, and I recounted the whole conversation. The cancer diagnosis, the apology, my decision to forgive her. "How do you feel?" Anna asked. "Lighter, I think. Like I was carrying something I didn't know I was carrying, and now it's gone." "Do you think she meant it? The apology?" "Yeah, I do. I think cancer scared her into becoming a different person, or at least trying to." "That's good. For her, I mean." "Yeah." Anna turned to face me. "You know what I love about you?" "What?" "You don't hold grudges. You could have used that meeting to tell her off, to make her feel as bad as she made you feel. But you didn't. You just forgave her and moved on. Holding grudges is exhausting. I learned that during the divorce." She kissed me. "You're a good person, Marcus Webb." "So are you, Anna Webb." We went to sleep, and I didn't think about Diane again until the calls started. The 98 missed calls came over the course of 1 week. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Diane had my number, sure, but we'd agreed to closure. 1 meeting, 1 apology, done. But the calls kept coming. Tuesday, 3 calls. Wednesday, 7 calls. Thursday, 15 calls. I didn't answer any of them. Didn't even listen to the voicemails. Just watched the notifications pile up and felt a growing sense of dread. Friday morning, I got a text from an unknown number. "Marcus, please answer. It's important." I blocked the number. Another text, different number. "I wouldn't be calling if it wasn't urgent. Please." Blocked. Another. "I need your help. Please, Marcus. I don't know who else to call." I called David Kowalski. He was still practicing, still handling family law, and he remembered me immediately. "Marcus Webb, it's been a long time. What can I do for you?" "My ex-wife is calling me. A lot. 98 times in the past week." "The ex-wife? Diane Chen?" "That one. Have you answered?" "No. We met for coffee last month. She apologized for the divorce, said she wanted closure. I thought we were done." "And now she's harassing you?" "I don't know if it's harassment or if she's genuinely in some kind of crisis, but it's a lot." "Do you want to file for a restraining order?" I hesitated. A restraining order felt extreme, but 98 calls in a week was also extreme. "Let me try calling her back first, see what she wants. If it continues after that, I'll file. Okay, but Marcus, document everything. Save the call logs, the texts, everything. If this escalates, you'll need evidence. I will. Thanks, David. That night, I called Diane back. She answered on the first ring. Marcus, oh my God, thank you for calling. I didn't think you would. Diane, you've called me 98 times this week. What's going on? I need your help. With what? I'm in trouble. Financial trouble. The medical bills from the cancer, treatment. My insurance didn't cover everything, and I've been trying to manage it, but I'm drowning. I lost my job 6 months ago because of the treatment, and I can't find another one. And my savings are gone, and... Diane, I'm sorry, but I can't help you with that. Please. I know I don't deserve it, but I don't have anyone else. My parents are gone. My mom died 2 years ago, my dad last year, and I don't have any siblings. And my friends, she laughed, bitter. I don't actually have friends, Marcus. I burned all those bridges years ago. What about the Hendersons, Jennifer, Claire, all those people from the garden party? They're gone. They were never really my friends. They were networking contacts. And once I lost my job, once I wasn't useful anymore, they disappeared. I felt a pang of sympathy, but I pushed it down. This wasn't my problem to solve. I can't give you money, Diane. I'm not asking for money, I'm asking for advice. You work in tech, you know people. Could you help me find a job, or at least point me in the right direction? I don't know. Please. I wouldn't be calling if I wasn't desperate. I closed my eyes, thought about the woman I'd met in that coffee shop, the one who'd apologized and cried and seemed genuinely remorseful. I'll send you some job listings, I said. That's all I can do. Thank you so much. Diane, you can't keep calling me like this. It's not appropriate. We're not friends. We're not in each other's lives. If you need help, you need to find it somewhere else. I know. I'm sorry. I panicked. I won't call again. I promise. Okay. I hung up and immediately felt guilty, then angry at myself for feeling guilty. I sent her 3 job listings, entry-level positions at companies I knew were hiring, and then blocked her number. For 3 days, my phone was quiet. Then, on Monday, I got a call from a lawyer I didn't recognize. Mr. Webb, this is Jonathan Harris. I'm representing Diane Chen in a legal matter, and she's listed you as a reference for a job application. Do you have a few minutes to answer some questions? I'm not a reference for her. Oh. Well, she indicated that you were her ex-husband and that you could speak to her work ethic and character. I can't speak to either of those things. We've been divorced for 14 years. I see. Well, thank you for your time. He hung up. I called Diane from a blocked number. She answered, hopeful. Hello? Did you list me as a reference for a job? Silence. Then, Marcus, we had a deal. You said you wouldn't contact me. Listing me as a reference without asking is contacting me. I didn't think it would be a big deal. It is a big deal. You can't just insert yourself back into my life because you're having problems. I have a wife, Diane. A life. You're not part of it. I'm sorry. I wasn't thinking. It won't happen again. It better not. I hung up and blocked the number I'd called from. Anna was watching me from the couch. What's going on? Diane's spiraling. She's desperate for help, and she thinks I'm her lifeline. Are you? No, absolutely not. But she doesn't seem to get that. Maybe you need to get David involved. File that restraining order. Maybe. But I didn't. Because part of me, the part that remembered the woman crying in the coffee shop, apologizing for things she'd done 14 years ago, felt like a restraining order would be cruel. Like kicking someone when they were already down. I told myself I'd give her one more chance to leave me alone. The breaking point came 2 weeks later. Anna and I were hosting a dinner party. Nothing fancy, Just a few friends, some wine, homemade pasta. We were in the middle of dessert when my phone rang. Unknown number. I ignored it. It rang again. Ignored. A text. Please answer. It's an emergency. Is that her? Anna asked quietly. Yeah. You should answer. If it's really an emergency. I stepped into our bedroom and called the number back. Marcus? Diane's voice was shaking. Oh, thank God. I didn't know who else to call. What's the emergency? I'm at the hospital. I collapsed at home. I think it's the cancer. I think it's back. And I don't have anyone to call, and I'm scared, and Diane, you need to call 911 or a friend, or... I already called 911. I'm at NYU Langone right now. But Marcus, I don't have anyone. No family, no friends. You're the only person I could think of. I felt the weight of 14 years pressing down on me. The garden party, the divorce, the years of silence. And now this, Diane, alone in a hospital, calling me because she had no one else. Which hospital? NYU Langone, the one on First Avenue. I'll be there in an hour. I hung up and went back to the dining room. I have to go, I told Anna. Is she okay? I don't know. She's at the hospital. She thinks the cancer might be back. Anna looked at our friends, then at me. Go. I'll handle this. Are you sure? Go. I grabbed my jacket and took a cab to NYU Langone. The emergency room was the usual chaos. Fluorescent lights, crying children, people clutching clipboards and waiting for news. I found Diane in a curtained-off area, lying on a gurney in a hospital gown, looking small and scared. Marcus, she tried to sit up. You came. What did the doctors say? They're running tests. They think it might be a complication from the chemo, not the cancer coming back, but they won't know for sure until they get the results. Okay. Do you need me to call anyone, contact anyone on your behalf? There's no one to call. I told you I'm alone. I pulled up a chair and sat down. Diane, you can't be completely alone. What about coworkers from your old job? Friends from college? I burned those bridges years ago, Marcus. I was terrible to people. Just like I was terrible to you. And now... Her voice broke. Now I'm paying for it. A nurse came in, checked her vitals, told us the doctor would be in soon with results. We sat in silence. The chaos of the ER hummed around us. I don't understand, I finally said. How does someone end up with no one? No friends, no family, no support system at all? You make choices, she said. Bad ones. You prioritize the wrong things. You treat people like they're disposable. And then one day you wake up and realize you're 53 years old and you're alone. What happened to Richard, Jennifer? All those people from Westchester? Richard moved to California years ago. Jennifer and I had a falling out over some work thing. I can't even remember what. The rest of them were never really friends. They were acquaintances, networking contacts, people I used. And after the divorce, I dated a few people. Nothing serious. Threw myself into work. Climbed the ladder at the PR firm. Made good money, lived in a nice apartment. And then I got sick. And the job let me go. And the nice apartment became too expensive. And she gestured at the hospital room. Here I am. Where are you living now? A studio in Queens. Nothing like the Murray Hill place we had. But it's mine. Or it will be. As long as I can keep paying rent. The doctor came in with her results. Not cancer. Just severe dehydration and exhaustion. They wanted to keep her overnight for observation, make sure she was stable. I stayed until she was moved to a regular room, until she was settled in a bed with an IV in her arm. Thank you, she said, for coming. I know you didn't have to. You're right. I didn't. So why did you? I thought about that. About the Marcus who'd sat in that guest room in Westchester 14 years ago, planning his escape. About the Marcus who'd fought for 9 months in divorce court, documenting every cruelty. About the Marcus who'd rebuilt his entire life from scratch. that Marcus would have ignored her call, would have let her face this alone, just like she'd made him face so many things alone. But I wasn't that Marcus anymore. Because I'm not you, I said. I don't leave people when they're down, even if they deserve it. She closed her eyes. I did deserve it. Yeah, you did. But that doesn't mean I have to become the kind of person who can walk away from someone in a hospital. You're a better person than I ever was. I'm just a person, Diane, trying to do the right thing. I left her there and went home. Anna was still up when I got back, cleaning up from the dinner party. How is she? She asked. Not dying, just dehydrated and exhausted. They're keeping her overnight. And how are you? I sat down at our kitchen table and put my head in my hands. I don't know, conflicted, angry that she dragged me into this, sad that she has no one else, guilty that I'm relieved it's not my problem. Anna sat down across from me. Marcus, you're allowed to set boundaries. You're allowed to say no to her. I know. But you won't. I said I'd help her find a job, that's it. I'm not becoming her support system. Okay. But if she keeps calling, if this becomes a pattern, you need to cut it off. For your sake, and for mine. I can't have her becoming a permanent fixture in our lives. She won't be, I promise. Anna looked at me like she didn't quite believe me. I didn't quite believe me either. Diane was discharged from the hospital the next morning. I didn't visit, didn't call, just waited to see if she'd respect the boundary I'd tried to set. She didn't. 2 days later, she called again. I answered, because I'm apparently a glutton for punishment. I got one of the jobs you sent me, she said. Well, an interview. It's on Friday. I wanted to thank you. That's good, Diane. I hope it works out. Can I ask you one more favor? What? Can you help me prep for the interview? I haven't interviewed in years, and I'm terrified. I'm going to blow it. Every fiber of my being wanted to say no, to hang up, block her number, and never think about her again. But I heard the desperation in her voice, and I remembered what it felt like to be desperate, to be starting over, to have no one in your corner. 1 hour, I said. Saturday morning, coffee shop near my office. Thank you, Marcus. Really, don't. Just be there Saturday at 10. Saturday morning, I met Diane at the same coffee shop where she'd apologized to me 2 months earlier. She looked better than she had in the hospital, color back in her face, hair brushed, clothes clean. But there was still something hollow about her, something defeated. I brought my resume, she said, sliding a piece of paper across the table. I read it. It was good, impressive even. 20 years in PR, big-name clients, successful campaigns. But there was a gap, 6 months since her last job ended. You need to address the gap, I said. Interviewers will ask about it. I was sick. I had cancer. Then say that. I took time off for medical treatment, but I'm fully recovered and ready to return to work. Keep it simple. Don't over-explain. She nodded, taking notes. We spent the next hour going through common interview questions, practicing her answers, talking through her strengths and weaknesses. Why do you want this job? I asked. Because I need the money. Try again. Because I'm passionate about helping brands tell their stories in authentic ways. Better, but add something personal. Make it real. She thought for a moment. Because I've spent the past year realizing what really matters. Connection, honesty, building something meaningful, and I want to bring that perspective to my work. Perfect. Lead with that. By the end of the hour, she was ready, confident even. Thank you, she said. I know you didn't have to do this. You're right, I didn't. But Diane, this is the last favor. After this, you need to find your own support system. Friends, a therapist, a support group. I don't care what it is, but it can't be me. I understand. Do you? Because you keep calling. You keep pulling me back into your life, and I can't do this anymore. I have a wife, a life, and you're not part of it. I know. I'm sorry. It won't happen again. I wanted to believe her. I didn't. Diane got the job. She called to tell me. One quick call, celebratory, grateful. I start Monday. Thank you for everything, Marcus. I mean it. Congratulations. I'm glad it worked out. I'll leave you alone now, I promise. This is the last you'll hear from me. Good luck, Diane. You too. She hung up, and for 3 weeks, she kept her promise. No calls, no texts, no emails. I started to relax, started to believe that maybe she'd actually moved on, found her footing, stopped seeing me as her lifeline. Then, on a Friday in December, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I answered, expecting a spam call. Mr. Webb, this is Officer Sarah Chen with the NYPD. I'm calling about Diane Chen. Are you her emergency contact? My blood ran cold. No, I'm her ex-husband. We've been divorced for over a decade. I see. Well, she's listed you as her emergency contact in her phone. She's been involved in an incident, and we need someone to come down to the precinct. What kind of incident? I can't discuss details over the phone. Can you come to the 17th precinct? It's on East 51st Street. Is she okay? She's physically unharmed. That's all I can say. I hung up and called Anna. Diane's at a police station. They want someone to come down. Are you going? I don't know. Should I? Marcus, if you don't go, who will? She was right. I went. The 17th precinct was exactly what you'd expect. Buzzing fluorescent lights, people waiting on hard plastic chairs, the smell of old coffee and stress. Officer Sarah Chen met me in the lobby. She was young, maybe late 20s, with tired eyes and a kind expression. Mr. Webb? That's me. Thank you for coming. Ms. Chen was picked up this morning for trespassing. She was found in the lobby of her old office building, the PR firm she used to work for, refusing to leave. Why? She was trying to speak to her former boss. Building security asked her to leave. She refused. They called us. Is she being charged? Not if someone can take her home and ensure she doesn't go back. But Mr. Webb, I need to be honest with you. She's not in great shape. Emotionally, I mean. I think she might need professional help. I nodded. Can I see her? Follow me. She led me to a small room where Diane was sitting at a table, her hands wrapped around a cup of coffee that had clearly gone cold. She looked up when I walked in. Marcus, I'm sorry, I didn't know they'd call you. You listed me as your emergency contact. I didn't have anyone else to list. I sat down across from her. What happened, Diane? I got fired. You just started that job 3 weeks ago. I know. I wasn't performing well. I couldn't focus. And my boss said I needed to take some time off, figure out my mental health, and I panicked. I thought if I could just talk to her, explain that I was trying, that I needed this job. So you went to her office and refused to leave. I wasn't thinking clearly. Diane, you need help, real help. A therapist, a psychiatrist, something. I know. Then why aren't you getting it? Because I can't afford it. Because my insurance lapsed when I lost my last job, and the new job, the one I just got fired from, hadn't kicked in yet. And I don't have any money for out-of-pocket therapy, and she started crying. Not the polite, controlled crying from the coffee shop. Full, ugly sobs. Officer Chen put a hand on my shoulder. She can go. Just make sure she gets home safe. I nodded. I took Diane to her apartment in Queens, a tiny studio in a building that smelled like mildew and old cooking. Helped her up the stairs because she was shaking too much to walk steadily. Do you have anyone you can call? I asked when we got inside. Anyone at all? No. What about therapy resources? Free clinics? Community mental health centers? I don't know where to even start looking. I pulled out my phone and Googled Free Mental Health Services NYC. Found 3 community health centers that offered sliding scale therapy. Here, I said, showing her the screen. Call these places on Monday. Tell them you need help and you can't afford traditional therapy. They'll work with you. She nodded, not looking at me. Diane, I mean it. You have to call them. What happened today? That can't happen again. You could have been arrested. You could have gotten hurt. I know. Do you? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're in free fall and you're grabbing onto whoever's nearby, and I can't be that person. I can't be your emergency contact, or your job reference, or your crisis counselor. I have my own life. I know, she said again, quieter this time. I'll call them. I promise. I looked around her apartment. It was sparse. A futon, a small table, a few boxes that looked like they'd never been unpacked. No photos on the walls, no personal touches, just a space to exist in, not a home. Get some rest, I said. And please, Diane, call those clinics. I left her there and took the subway back to Brooklyn, feeling like I'd just put a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. When I got home, Anna was waiting up. How bad? She asked. Bad. She got fired, had some kind of breakdown, tried to force her way into her old office to talk to her former boss. The police were called. Jesus. She's spiraling, Anna, and she doesn't have anyone. No support system, no money for therapy, nothing. That's not your fault. I know it's not my fault, but I can't just abandon someone who's clearly in crisis. Anna was quiet for a long moment. Then, Marcus, I love that you're compassionate. I love that you want to help people. But you're setting yourself on fire to keep her warm, and it's not sustainable. What am I supposed to do? Let her hit rock bottom alone? Maybe. Maybe that's what she needs. You can't save someone who doesn't want to save themselves. And right now, it looks like she wants you to save her instead of doing the work herself. I knew she was right. But knowing something and acting on it are 2 different things. I gave her resources, I said. Mental health clinics that offer free or low-cost therapy. If she uses them, great. If she doesn't, that's on her. And if she calls you again? I don't know. Anna looked at me with something between sympathy and frustration. You need to decide where your boundary is, because she's going to keep pushing until you do. Diane called the next day. I didn't answer. She called again the day after that. I didn't answer. On the 3rd day, she left a voicemail. Marcus, I wanted to let you know I called one of those clinics you gave me. I have an appointment on Thursday with a therapist. So thank you for not giving up on me. I know I don't deserve it, but thank you. I listened to the message twice. Then I called David Kowalski. I need to file that restraining order. Against Diane? Yes. What happened? I told him everything. The 98 calls, the hospital visit, the job interview prep, the police station. She's in crisis, I said, and she's using me as her only support system, and I can't do it anymore. I need legal protection. Okay. But Marcus, I have to ask, are you sure? A restraining order is a big step. It'll prohibit her from contacting you in any way, and if she violates it, she could be arrested. I'm sure. She promised to leave me alone, and she hasn't. She listed me as her emergency contact without asking. She's inserting herself into my life, and I need it to stop. All right, I'll draft the paperwork. We'll file this week and get a court date for a hearing. She'll be served, and then you'll both appear before a judge. Be prepared for her to contest it. I don't care if she contests it, I just need this to end. The paperwork was filed on Wednesday. Diane was served on Friday at her apartment in Queens. The hearing was scheduled for the following Tuesday. I spent the weekend feeling like I'd done something terrible and necessary at the same time, like amputating a limb to save the body. Harsh, painful, but ultimately the only option. Anna didn't say, I told you so, which I appreciated. She just held my hand and reminded me that I was doing the right thing. Tuesday morning, I met David at the courthouse. We were shown into a small courtroom where a judge, the same Judge Patricia Reeves, who'd mediated our settlement conference 14 years ago, was presiding. Diane was already there with a legal aid, attorney who looked fresh out of law school. She wouldn't meet my eyes. "This is a petition for an order of protection," Judge Reeves began, reading from her files. "Mr. Webb, you're asking the court to prohibit Ms. Chen from contacting you. Is that correct?" "Yes, Your Honor." "And Ms. Chen, do you contest this petition?" Diane's lawyer stood. "Your Honor, my client acknowledges that she has contacted Mr. Webb multiple times over the past few months, but it was not with malicious intent. She was experiencing a medical crisis and had no other support system. That's not Mr. Webb's responsibility," Judge Reeves interrupted. "Mr. Webb, can you outline the nature of Ms. Chen's contact?" I did. Calmly, factually. The 98 missed calls, the hospital visit, the job reference, the police station. "And you've asked her to stop contacting you?" "Multiple times, Your Honor." "Ms. Chen, is this accurate?" Diane stood slowly. "Yes, Your Honor, but I want to explain." "You'll have your chance. First, I need to understand the facts. Did Mr. Webb ask you to stop contacting him?" "Yes." "And did you continue to contact him after he made that request?" "Yes, but—" "No buts, Ms. Chen. You continued to contact someone who explicitly asked you to stop. That's harassment, regardless of your intentions." Diane's face crumpled. "I didn't mean to harass him. I didn't have anyone else. I was desperate." "Then you should have sought professional help, not repeatedly contacted your ex-husband against his wishes." The judge looked at her notes, then at both of us. "I'm granting the order of protection. Ms. Chen, you are prohibited from contacting Mr. Webb in any way. No calls, texts, emails, social media messages, or in-person contact. This order is effective immediately and will remain in place for 1 year. If you violate it, you will be arrested. Do you understand?" "Yes, Your Honor," Diane whispered. "Mr. Webb, if she contacts you in any way, you are to report it to the police immediately. Do you understand?" "Yes, Your Honor." "Good. This hearing's concluded." We filed out of the courtroom. I didn't look back at Diane, didn't say goodbye, just left with David and walked out into the cold December morning. "How do you feel?" David asked. "Like I just put a wounded animal out of its misery." "That's dark. It's accurate." He clapped me on the shoulder. "You did the right thing. Sometimes compassion means setting hard boundaries." I nodded, but I didn't quite believe it. I went home and told Anna it was done. "Good," she said. "Now, maybe we can get back to our actual lives." For 3 months, my phone was quiet. January passed, February, March. No calls from Diane, no texts, no mysterious appearances at my office, or emails from addresses I didn't recognize. The restraining order had worked. I started to relax, started to believe that this chapter was finally truly closed. And then, in late March, I got a letter in the mail, not from Diane, from her therapist. "Dear Mr. Webb, I am writing to you with my client Diane Chen's permission. Ms. Chen has been in therapy with me since December and has made significant progress in addressing her mental health challenges. As part of her treatment, we've been working on accountability and making amends. Ms. Chen wanted to reach out to you directly, but she understands that she is legally prohibited from doing so. She asked me to convey the following message. She is deeply sorry for the harassment and distress she caused you over the past several months. She recognizes that her behavior was inappropriate and that she violated your boundaries repeatedly. She is committed to respecting the restraining order and will not contact you in any way. She also wanted you to know that she is doing better. She has found stable housing, is working with a job counselor, and is actively building a support system that does not rely on you. She hopes that you can find peace, knowing she is working to become a healthier person. This letter is not a request for contact or reconciliation. It is simply a message of accountability and closure. With respect, Dr. Jennifer Walsh, LCSW. I read the letter 3 times. Then I put it in a drawer and didn't think about it for a week. When I finally told Anna about it, she asked the obvious question, "How do you feel?" Relieved, I think, that she's getting help, that she's respecting the boundary. Do you want to respond? No. The restraining order is still in effect for another 9 months, and even if it wasn't, I don't think I have anything left to say to her. Then don't. Just let it be done. So I did. I let it be done. The restraining order expired in December 2025. Diane didn't contact me, not on the day it expired, not the week after, not the month after, just silence. It was strange, in a way. For 6 months in 2024, she'd been this constant presence, chaos and crisis and need. And then she was just gone. I thought about her sometimes, wondered if she was okay, if she'd kept up with therapy, if she'd found friends, or rebuilt her life in any meaningful way. But I didn't reach out, didn't try to find out, because that wasn't my job anymore. In February 2026, exactly 14 years after our divorce was finalized, I got an email, not from Diane, from her therapist again. Dear Mr. Webb, I hope this message finds you well. I am writing to inform you that my client, Diane Chen, passed away on February 10th, 2026. The cause of death was ovarian cancer. It had returned last fall, and despite aggressive treatment, she did not survive. Ms. Chen spent the last months of her life doing the work of healing, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. She made peace with many of her past actions and relationships. She asked that if she did not survive, I contact you one final time to express her gratitude. She wanted you to know that your kindness in her darkest moments, showing up at the hospital, helping with job preparation, giving her resources for mental health support, gave her the foundation to start rebuilding. Even though you rightfully set boundaries, those small acts of compassion meant everything to her. She also wanted you to know that she died surrounded by people who cared about her. She had rebuilt, slowly and imperfectly, a small community of support. She was not alone at the end. Attached to this email is a letter she wrote to you several months ago. She asked me to send it only if she passed away. I will respect her wishes. With sympathy, Dr. Jennifer Walsh, LCSW. There was an attachment, a PDF titled For Marcus. I stared at it for a long time. Then I opened it. Dear Marcus, if you're reading this, I'm gone. And I'm sorry for reaching out one last time, even if it's from beyond the grave. I know I promised to leave you alone, and I've kept that promise. But I needed to say a few things while I still could. First, thank you, not just for the hospital visit, or the job help, or the mental health resources, but for showing me what kindness looks like. For 14 years, I told myself you were weak for walking away from our marriage, that you gave up too easily, that you couldn't handle a strong woman. I was wrong about all of it. You weren't weak. You were strong enough to recognize you deserved better. You weren't giving up. You were choosing yourself. And I wasn't a strong woman. I was a cruel one, using control to mask my own fear and inadequacy. The garden party, that moment when I canceled your ticket to teach you obedience. I've thought about it every day since my diagnosis. How small I tried to make you. How ugly my need for control was. How I took someone who loved me and turned him into a project, a possession, something to manage. You were right to leave. You were right to fight me in court. You were right to set boundaries when I came back into your life. You were right about everything. Second, I'm sorry. I know I apologized before, but I don't think I truly understood what I was apologizing for until I went through therapy. I didn't just hurt you. I tried to destroy your sense of self. I tried to make you believe you were nothing without me. And when you proved I was wrong by building a beautiful life without me, I hated you for it. That hatred turned into desperation when I got sick. When I realized I'd spent my whole life building a castle of networking contacts and professional achievements instead of actual relationships. When I understood that I was going to die alone because I'd treated everyone in my life like they were disposable. You could have let me die alone. You would have been justified, but you didn't. You showed up. And that kindness, that undeserved, unearned kindness, was the seed of everything that came after. I used the resources you gave me. I found a therapist. I started doing the hard work of understanding why I was the way I was. And slowly, painfully, I started to change. I made friends, real ones, people I met in group therapy, in a cancer support group, through a volunteer program, people who knew me at my worst and chose to care about me anyway. It wasn't a big circle, just 4 or 5 people, but it was real. I learned to ask for help without manipulating, to accept help without feeling like I owed something in return, to be vulnerable without weaponizing that vulnerability. I learned to be a person instead of a performance. And Marcus, I want you to know, I died surrounded by those people. They were there in the hospital with me. They held my hand. They told me I mattered. I didn't die alone. You gave me that. Your refusal to be my entire support system forced me to build my own. Your boundaries taught me that love isn't about control, it's about respect. Third, I hope you're happy. I hope Anna is wonderful. I hope your life is everything you wanted it to be. You deserve that. And finally, you don't need to forgive me. You already did, years ago, and I know it was more for your peace than mine. But if there's any small part of you that still carries anger or guilt or complicated feelings about our marriage, about the divorce, about the months in 2024 when I re-entered your life, let it go. You did nothing wrong. You were never the problem. You were, and I suspect still are, a good man who deserved better than what I gave you. Thank you for the 6 years we had, flawed as they were. Thank you for leaving when you needed to. Thank you for showing me kindness when I didn't deserve it. And thank you for living a life that proved I was wrong about you. Rest easy, Marcus. You don't owe me anything, not even grief. Diane. I read the letter twice. Then I closed my laptop and sat in the silence of my apartment. Anna was at work. The dogs were asleep on the couch. Outside, Brooklyn hummed with its usual chaos. Sirens and car horns and the distant rumble of the subway. I don't know what I felt. Sad, maybe. Not for Diane specifically. We'd been strangers for 14 years. But sad for the waste of it all. The years she'd spent being cruel. The relationships she'd destroyed. The loneliness she'd endured because she couldn't figure out how to be kind until it was almost too late. Relieved that she'd found some peace at the end. That she'd died surrounded by people who cared, not alone in that sparse Queens apartment. And strangely, finally completely at peace with the entire arc of our relationship. The garden party, the divorce, the years of silence, the chaotic months in 2024, the restraining order, and now this, a final goodbye from beyond the grave. It was over, all of it. That night, Anna came home and found me on the couch, staring at nothing. "What's wrong?" she asked. "Diane died." She sat down next to me. "I'm sorry, what happened?" "Cancer came back. She died last week. Her therapist sent me an email." "How do you feel?" "I don't know. It's strange. She's been this presence in my life for so long. First as my wife, then as my ex-wife, then as this person I was trying to protect myself from. And now she's just gone." "Did the therapist say anything else?" "She sent a letter. From Diane. She wrote it before she died." "Do you want to talk about it?" She apologized, thanked me for helping her when she came back into my life in 2024, said that my boundaries forced her to build her own support system, and that she died surrounded by friends. She wanted me to know she wasn't alone at the end. Anna was quiet for a moment. That's good. That she found people. That she changed. Yeah. Are you okay? I thought about that question. Was I okay? Yeah, I said. I think I am. It's the end of a chapter I didn't know still had pages left. What are you going to do? Nothing. There's nothing to do. She's gone. It's over. Anna took my hand. You're a good person, Marcus Webb. A better person than most people would have been in your situation. I just tried to do the right thing. And you did, even when it was hard. Even when it would have been easier to walk away. We sat there together in the quiet of our living room, and I felt the weight of 14 years. The anger, the hurt, the complicated forgiveness, the boundaries, the final goodbye, finally lift. I was free. Not in the way I'd been free in 2012, when the divorce was finalized, and I was just relieved to be done. Free in a deeper way. Free from the story entirely. Free from the what-ifs and the should-haves and the residual guilt about whether I'd done enough. I'd done enough, more than enough, and Diane, flawed, cruel, complicated Diane, had finally become someone different at the end. Not the woman who'd humiliated me at a garden party, not the woman who'd fought me in court, but a woman who'd learned painfully and late how to be human. That was worth something. Not forgiveness exactly, not reconciliation, just peace. Spring 2026. I'm in our backyard in Brooklyn, a small patch of green we've been cultivating for the past year. Anna is planting tomatoes. The dogs are digging holes they shouldn't be digging. The sun is warm. The air smells like earth and new growth, and I'm sitting on our back steps with a cup of coffee, watching life happen. My phone buzzes. A text from my mom. Thinking about you today. 15 years since the divorce was finalized. Hard to believe. Love you, honey. 15 years. Half my lifetime ago. I text back. Love you too, Mom. I'm good. Really good. And I am. I think about the Marcus who sat in that guest room in Westchester, 29 years old and humiliated, planning his escape. The Marcus who fought for 9 months in divorce court. The Marcus who rebuilt his entire life from a 400-square-foot studio apartment. I think about Diane, dead at 53, but changed at the end. Surrounded by friends she'd made in her final years, people who knew her at her worst and chose to care anyway. I think about the garden party, about the sound of 12 people not laughing, about the quiet devastation of being made small by someone you loved. And I think about how I never called, how I held my boundary, how I built something better. Diane called 98 times. All those missed calls, all that desperation, all that need, and I let them ring. Not out of cruelty, not even out of anger, out of self-preservation, out of respect for the life I'd built, out of understanding that you can't save someone who's drowning if they're going to pull you under. I set boundaries. I showed kindness when I could. I walked away when I needed to. And in the end, Diane found her own way to shore. Anna comes over and sits next to me on the steps, dirt under her fingernails, a smudge of soil on her cheek. What are you thinking about? She asks. The past, the long way here. Regrets? None. She leans her head on my shoulder. Good, because this, right here, right now, this is the life you built. And it's beautiful. She's right. It is beautiful. The garden growing, the dogs playing, the woman I love beside me, the years of work, therapy, growth, healing, learning how to be someone who doesn't need permission to exist, all leading to this moment, this quiet, ordinary, perfect moment. I finish my coffee and go help Anna with the tomatoes, because that's what life is now. Not drama or crisis or fighting for dignity in courtrooms. Just planting things and watching them grow. Just being present in the life I chose. Just being free. If you've ever been made small by someone who is supposed to love you, know this: you can leave. You can rebuild. You can become someone who respects themselves again. It won't be easy. It won't be quick. But it will be worth it. Every single step of the way.